Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Menno Lounge Aloha edition. It's Tuesday. It's where you're supposed to be. I'm just where I'm supposed to be. Hashtag Menowell Life in Hawaii. Super excited to be here with you today. Hi, Laura. How are you? And we've got, well, I have to say, my favorite nutritionist with us today talking about something super special. And of course, I had to go to the doing the Menowell life, then I have to go to a place where stress is not an option. Here she comes. There
Hey
you
Julia,
are,
beautiful.
beautiful.
How are
Hello.
you? I wish I was where you are.
I kind of wish you were here too.
I know, it's
Oops,
beautiful.
I have a little echo in my ear. Am I echoing to you, Barb?
A little bit.
Okay, I have these headphones on because I wanted to block out all that ocean sound. How about that? Can you hear me?
That seems a little better.
Okay, we'll just do this. We're doing it on the fly here. You should see me walking around my room with my tripod thing. Like, will this work? Will this work?
Well,
So
it's beautiful. I can see the beach, the palm trees. It's gorgeous.
it's a gorgeous day, and to me, it was so fitting for our conversation about stress in midlife. And hopefully, everybody can just take a minute and breathe
Yeah.
in the waves back there. Try to listen to what Barb has to say because it's going to be important. But while you're doing it, make sure you're looking back there too. So.
I would love it if everyone felt that they had let go or
Uh-oh. I think we just lost Barb. Was that me? Oh boy, hopefully we're not going to have a tech fun today here. Barb is frozen. Hi, Lynn. Somebody post in the comments here if you can hear me. So I'll know I'm here and Barb's going to come back on. Let's see. Maybe it's me. Hopefully not. Should I stay or should I go? Do you know that song? It shows it's still live. I think, oh, thank you. Oh, Barb, you can hear me. You're frozen on my end. Am I frozen on your end? Let me know. This is going to be the fun part here. Okay, here she's coming back. This is the downside of doing a live from a remote location.
hi.
Okay,
I'm back.
did I
I don't know, I got disconnected, but then it took me a minute to figure out how to reconnect. So
Okay. It's, maybe it's the island gods here doing the thing. So this is always the risk of, I was saying, being live in a remote location. So let's keep our fingers crossed today.
fingers crossed. I did a big training in mind body medicine and I went to do my final project and my internet went completely dead. So I know what to do.
You know what to do. We've got this. We are
We've
resilient.
got this.
We
We'll
keep
just
going. We
breathe
keep
through
going.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
Barb, before we jump in, I always share everyone that you are our in-house clinical nutritionist, but one, I know you have other initials. So just share with everyone your background a little bit, and then we can talk about why, being a clinical nutritionist is very special and it's not an easy level to attain. So can you just share what that means? First of all, what are all your initials and what they mean and why it's important?
Yes. Thank you for asking. So I am an MS CNS LDN. So when I decided I wanted to become a nutritionist, it was a second career, maybe third career. And I decided I really wanted to go back and get a master's at an accredited university. And that would allow me much more in-depth knowledge as well as much more in-depth continuing education. So that's my MS, my master's. Then I sat for a national board certification, which is the CNS. And then I got licensed, and that is my LDN. And in California, where I live, we don't license nutritionists. So my license is actually in the state of Pennsylvania. And they didn't really care where I was practicing, but it allows me even more opportunities for professional development, for deeper knowledge, for more access to things that I can pass on to my clients. So that's why I took this route. instead of doing a certificate or going to a non-accredited university, because
Yeah.
I wanted to keep going and go a
Love
little
that.
deeper.
And continuing education is so important, and it was so important to us to have. I mean, when I met you, I was so honored that you said yes, I would love to be a part of the team, because it's important what we do. And there's science to nutrition, but I don't think people really, we just think it's food. Eat whole food and you're fine. But there's,
Right.
of course, science, health, all those things. So
Right. There's
I'm
all those
thrilled.
things. And there's also knowing the difference between, like, this is a generically good diet, and this is what's going to bring optimal health in your particular body, because
Mm,
the way you react to things is different than the way my body
right.
reacts.
Not one
So,
size fits all, right?
exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
sure, I know there, well, I play a nutritionist on Instagram on
Right.
Tuesdays.
I
Usually
love
Barb's like,
that.
I have a little earpiece, and Barb's whispering in my ear, don't say that or say that. No, go that. No, I'm kidding. But I have gleaned so much knowledge from you. But there are certain core things that we can honor across the board, whole foods, things like that.
Exactly.
But then once we get to the nuance aspects of it, really understanding your own body is so important. So how does all this, and we're going to talk today about stress and the intersection of nutrition, stress, perimenopause, menopause one day, post-menopause long time, how all that comes together. So I know we were excited when we started talking about this, because stress, we wonder why we have belly fat, and you can always refute some of this, but all the things that we wonder why we are struggling and suffering. And yes, it's all the hormone related things, but then there's so many external things, stress, that just pile on that make it even worse. So Barb, let's give an overview of what your thoughts are about stress, and then we can go into some tips and go all the way
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
I'm warning, I'm gonna have vacation brain today, Barb, so you can just carry
Well,
this. Okay.
I have a warning too. I'm 6 days into COVID and I tested positive this morning. So I'm
Oh,
isolated in my little office.
aw.
So hopefully I don't have COVID brain, but we'll muddle through
We've
this.
got this.
We got this.
We
Yeah.
have each other. Okay. Oops. I just lost your audio, but I am hoping people can still hear you. Barb, can you hear me? I lost your audio. Okay, there we go. Okay, you came back. Go ahead.
Sorry. So stress can be a good thing. So when we do things like lift weights, we're stressing our muscles, and then we let our muscles rest and they get stronger, right? So there's good stress. We all have been motivated by a deadline, right? We get our work done when we have to. It sits on our desk forever until we have 2 days to get it done. But when we let stress go too long and we don't relax from it or take a break from it, and it just keeps piling it up, that's when it can have health consequences. And we can't mitigate all stress. That's impossible. But what we can do is learn to manage it. So I always use my cat as an example because he's so obvious about it. A couple of weeks ago, he got stuck up in a tree. I had to have the fire department come. But they told me to let him come down on his own, which he did. But that was a traumatic, stressful experience for him. He was whatever horrible sound he was making to get down. He finally made it down and he was safe. But he spent the next 2 or 3 days sleeping, just recovering.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time you saw a woman do that? We just don't do that. We go from project to family to social responsibility, everything. And we just then we got to get the house clean or make dinner or drive someone somewhere or
Right.
someone cuts us off and traffic. So what happens to our bodies is we end up in this constant stress, kind of this way of just being in constant stress, and we never let it go.
Yeah.
And one of the consequences of stress is we raise our cortisol level. We raise our cortisol level, that's a hormone. Then our insulin level goes up, which is helps get blood sugar into our cells. And when that goes up, we start getting that menopause middle. So that's sort of a long way to circle back about what stress can do with us. And when our body is, when we're in stress, we prioritize dealing with that in that situation. Our bodies think all stress is the same. So we could have heard something, we could have had someone yell at us. We could have underlying health condition. Someone we love could have an underlying health condition that we're worried about. We could have a big deadline. We could, whatever the things are. And our body is going to emphasize dealing with the stress, which is kind of in the prehistoric days, run from the tiger, right?
Our
And
stress response,
our stress response is going to get elevated, and we're going to prioritize that because that's life-saving, rather than making our sex hormones. Because in those moments of stress, our body is not thinking about reproducing, it's thinking about staying alive. And since we internalize all stress the same way, our bodies, if we're in a constant stress state, always need to feel like we could lift up the car to save our best friend or our child from being squished.
Right.
So when we're in perimenopause and our stress hormone, our regular hormones are fluctuating so much, that can really affect our whole menopausal journey, because sometimes we're high, sometimes we're low, whatever we're doing, but the cortisol is sort of taking the center stage with our bodies.
Wow.
So that can influence it from early on, with our hormones, all the way through the whole menopausal journey.
So you're saying that the influx of cortisol that comes from being in a state of stress overrides or mixes with our hormones, and it
gets prioritized.
It gets prioritized. Okay, that's the word. It gets prioritized, and so that adds to more suffering, discomfort, depression.
Right. And we all know, we all have different symptoms, right? So whatever your body kind of shows as its symptoms in that perimenopausal
so it
journey,
amplifies your experience.
It amplifies, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We think about those pressure situations, big deadline, worry, but what about underlying stress? Because that's what I find for myself. I feel that I can handle a lot of stress. Like I don't even notice it until I go away I give myself permission to go away. And I realize it takes a couple days. I'm speaking like real time right now.
Yeah.
And then there's literally like a whoosh, even a fluid from my body, of release that I was balancing, carrying, and you just become so numb to that ongoing level of stress that you don't even know you're carrying it. How does that impact our experience, you think?
Hugely. And I think you're right on with that point, that we don't really realize that. I have clients all the time that tell me I'm not really stressed. But then when we dig down, their day is jam-packed. They never have any downtime.
Right.
And our bodies need that.
It's almost we've normalized it,
exactly.
that level of intensity.
That level of busyness and intensity. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not normal biologically. It might be normal society, but I don't think it's helping us. And there's lots of implications because stress affects our sleep. It affects what we want to eat. It affects our motivation to exercise. It affects all sorts of the different pathways that just build out from there.
No, I find, having what's today's Tuesday. So I'm 1, 2, does travel day count? Kind of. I always say vacation starts on, it's a little stressful, but I always say vacation starts on travel day. Yeah. But, so 4 days in, I'm loving working out every day. I'm like, lifting heavier, all that, because I think the energy that I use in business every day now is freed up. So my workouts are better.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. And I think really the key for women is how can we get those brief moments where we can bring some stress relief into our actual days. It'd be awesome if you could sit and meditate for an hour every day. I can't do it. I don't have time. I can't, it's too hard. I get stressed
I'm
just
good
thinking
for
about
20
that.
minutes though, usually. I have to. That's the one thing for me, and I know we're going to talk about some tips, but for
Yeah.
me, that is the one thing that I literally have to do every morning because it sets up my whole day. I wish it were exercise. Maybe someday it will be. I have to force myself on that one, but 20 minutes of meditation, because without it, my day is just a jumble. I can be intentional, I can be calm, set myself up, get clear. And I think that helped my menopause journey. But so
Yeah.
that's me. But I know many women are like you, Barb. It's hard to sit down that quietly, for such a period of time.
Yeah.
So.
I usually do 10 minutes and sometimes I'll journal for another 10 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
so after that. But I switch it around and, I also think that's awesome in the morning, but what happens by 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah.
And especially if we have a demanding job, we have family that we're taking care of, we have that sort of second part of the day. We might have kids, we might have parents that we're dealing with that
Right.
need extra help. So that second part of the day or that second job can
Yeah.
be really stressful
Yeah.
because it's built on top of the first day.
Right. And if you don't have a transition period,
Yeah.
actually, we need to talk, we'll talk about this offline more, but I took this class that taught some skills around exactly what you're talking about, that afternoon stress release. And one of the things they teach you is to find some, I have vacation nails right now, find some, something. And so I've started doing this thing where I just rub my, fingers together like
Uh-huh.
this in the afternoon, and it reminds me like, okay, calm down.
Oh, that's great.
It's a little signal to myself. So finding those things, some people tap, there's other things
Mm-hmm.
that you can do, but I like this because I can be on a Zoom call and I
Mm-hmm.
can just go in my, although you might think I'm like, I don't know, squishing a bug or something, but no. But little things.
I like that.
So
I
that's
love that.
important though,
It's
getting back to that way to soothe yourself, to calm yourself down in the middle of the day, the flurry.
right. And that's when we often see people saying, "Oh, I really want a glass of wine," or "I really want
Candy
a bunch of
bar.
crap." Yes, exactly.
That's why, right?
Exactly.
We jump in there with that so you can have a
Yeah.
better choice when you want. Does our cortisol go up? Is that when our stress goes up in those afternoon moments, do you think?
It can, but it also can be, we can sometimes be, our cortisol go too low. Sometimes it goes too high, sometimes it goes too low.
Mm.
So it depends. If you're feeling really tired and kind of just exhausted in the late afternoon,
Yeah.
your cortisol could be, your cortisol has a normal trajectory during the day. It comes up in the morning and it does this long, like a beautiful long, gentle ski run down till when you go to sleep. And sometimes our cortisol can be too low and sometimes it can be too high. And they're both signs of stress. When you're feeling that anxiousness, or that's the sort of when it's high, and when you're feeling really exhausted,
Mm.
that's the low.
Wow. And I know, especially the low, when I took your glycemic class, your glucose class,
Yeah.
how you talk about that, and we're going to be doing something interesting around that in the future with Barb for our MenoWell customers. And so, but noticing it, we think always like things are really high. We're always worried about high, but then there's the low that has a different, but also not so good effect as well. Correct?
Correct. So can we talk about blood sugar? Because this is a great segue. And I think for stress relief reasons, it's super important. And I have seen more and more women in as they go through menopause and be on the other side, they become more sensitive to changes in blood sugar. And we always think of high blood sugar, pre-diabetes, diabetes as what you want to stay away from, right? We want to keep our blood sugar really low so that we don't get any of those diseases. But one of the things that I see that happens with women is that their blood sugar goes up and down much more during the day than it used to when they were pre-menopausal. And the lows often happen in the middle of the night, and
Right.
they don't sleep well,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you have this added a kind of assault on your sleep, which then is stressful for your body. That's one of those sort of underlying things that you don't notice as
Right.
being stressful, but for your body, if you don't get enough sleep, that's stress.
Yes. And we get stressed about not getting sleep. So that just
Exactly. Yeah.
piles on top of that. Okay, Barb, are you telling me to eat something before I go to bed?
No, I'm
Okay.
telling you to know what's happening with your blood sugar response. And if you are the person who is waking up in the middle of the night, it would be a good exercise to look at what you're eating during the day
Hmm.
and notice, are you getting enough protein during the day? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you getting some healthy fats? And if you're eating a lot of even healthy things like fruit,
Yep.
unbalanced with protein and fat and more fiber, like in vegetables and stuff like that, you may be, or you're not getting enough food during the day. Your blood sugar might be going too low at night, and we need to get more food in you during the day, and you might need a snack before
Mm.
dinner. I mean, before bed.
So
But not everyone. I wouldn't say, I mean, in general, I say let's fast overnight.
yes.
But there is a good portion of women who have a lot of issues because they're not sleeping in the middle of the night. And when we put a continuous glucose monitor on them, we see that their blood sugar is dipping, and that's waking them up. They don't wake up hungry,
Right.
but it's waking them up. And then it's hard to get back to sleep.
Yes. That's always a tricky part. Going to sleep doesn't seem to be difficult, but if you wake up, getting back to sleep
Right.
is really hard. Yeah.
Right.
Glucose monitors are so interesting. I think they're so important. I mean, I'm speaking to the choir here.
Yeah.
So important during the stages of menopause because you're learning something about your body that you don't have access to without it, to really
Right.
understand. You might intuitively, which we can, I think we should be able to trust ourselves around that, but why not put some numbers behind it, some data, and then you can maybe make small adjustments to optimize to feel better.
Exactly. I mean, I've seen quite a few clients that really have sleep issues or headaches or other kinds of things. And once we figured out their blood sugar was going too low at night, they were able to change what they were doing during the day
Mm.
and not have those problems
I,
anymore. And I
I
think it's
love,
underutilized for that,
yeah.
the CGMs.
And what I'm also hearing is that women, especially as we struggle with wanting to lose belly fat or, weight around the middle, or fat loss, that we tend to go back to our old habits of too much cardio and too few calories.
Yeah.
We just try to go down to, I want to lose weight really fast. So I'm just going to have 900 calories or
Right.
800 calories. Like, no, your body is going to wake up in the middle of the night, period.
Right.
Because you're starving it instead of giving it really good nutrients and high protein and high fiber and all the vitamins we need. And that way, then you're full. And using the right tools to build muscle, and then that's how that body fat goes down, not just starving ourselves and running like a woman in your 30s on a treadmill.
And because we need to nourish our bodies. Our bodies are different and they've changed. I think as we get older, everyone has experienced going and having a couple glass of wine with their friends, and we feel, at least I do, terrible the next day, right? Terrible. Like, our bodies are not the same as they were in their 20s.
I was literally crying about it last night. Not crying, but like I had one margarita, one Barb, and at first I was like, I feel so good. It's amazing. And then
Exactly.
I feel terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
And the combination of alcohol and sugar, terrible. So that's body doesn't handle it well anymore. Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the things we need to be aware of is we sort of think we get to a certain age, we know our body, I don't want to have to deal with like having to cook special things or right, like I'm done being the mom here.
Yeah.
And it turns out we actually have to be the one who's responsible for nourishing our body. And
Mhm.
sometimes that means making new habits around planning, around setting intentions. It's a lot of work, but our bodies have changed so much that if we don't do it, we're going to have consequences.
Absolutely. I want to talk about some tips that you have for us to manage stress at this time. But if I can throw one in, I'm a
Yeah.
huge online grocery shopper. Everyone laughs at
Yeah.
me because I don't go to the store that often, unless I want something special. Because I have like a song playlist, I have food that automatically goes into my cart
Mm-hmm.
every single Friday. That way I make sure I have those things. Like I always have Greek yogurt always in my cart. I always have cottage cheese always in my cart. I always have blueberries. I always have blackberries. Just those core things. I always have ground turkey. I always have, like, I might not even eat all of it during the week. Well, that's not true. I eat pretty much all of that. But making sure I always have those things so I don't have to think about it. So, and I don't like to plan. I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I'm creative,
Right.
but I don't have to plan because I believe in systems. So
Yeah.
I think that's super
I think
important.
that's a great idea. Put it on autopilot, the things you know you like that are going to nourish you, and then you can be creative in the kitchen.
Right. Then you
Or
can
you can
have
eat
fun.
your backup. What,
Right.
right? Yeah. So,
Exactly. Okay. Give us some tips, Barb.
okay,
I know
I
you're
love
sitting
that
on
one.
some
So,
good
okay,
stuff.
so my first one we already talked about, let's balance our blood sugar. And really, that's prioritizing protein, fat, and fiber. And that would be healthy fats.
Mm-hmm.
And then minimizing the simple carbs because those are going to really play around with our blood sugar. Second thing is eat mindfully and slowly. And doing that is actually a form of managing your stress just
Mm-hmm.
by coming in. Like when you look at that plate of blueberries, look at them.
Not
They're
like,
interesting. They're all different, right? Yeah,
yeah.
right. So, eating slowly, I mean, it helps our digestion, obviously. It also helps us with portion control because we can actually have enough time to feel satiated.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it slowly and you're really tasting your food and looking at it and smelling it if it's smellable, you're in that experience, and that's practicing mindfulness, which is going to
Mm-hmm.
help with stress.
Which
So,
that is huge because I think many women eat too fast left over if we had kids. When you have little
yeah,
ones, you have to eat so fast. Otherwise you don't eat
yeah,
because somebody's up from the table, wandering around or something. And not good just to eat that
no.
fast and not really enjoy our food and really taste it. So I love that. I think it's huge, huge,
Yeah,
huge, huge.
I love bringing moments that we're already doing and
Mm-hmm.
making them mindful.
Mm.
So, pay attention when you get in the shower and what does the water feel like on your body. But we eat a lot during the day. We only take usually one shower, but if we can be mindful when we eat, it's huge. So that's second. I think third thing, um, is really making sure that we prioritize sleep. If we are stressed, we're not going to sleep as well. But when we are stressed, and when we don't sleep as well, we tend to make poor food decisions during the day and poor lifestyle decisions, right? That's when we might want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, and then it turns into 5 episodes and you haven't gone to bed. Or we, decide, oh, I'm kind of tired. I don't really want to do that weight workout. I'm going to do some stretching, which is fine if, you really need to recover, but it doesn't help you reach your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really important. Okay. So that makes me, can I ask a question here?
Yeah.
That because if you're having trouble sleeping and you wake up in the middle of the night, because sometimes you can go to bed early.
Yeah.
I try to go to bed early, but then I might wake up early. Like I may wake up at 2 or 3 and I tell myself, don't get up, don't get up, don't get up. Because I want to just get up and launch into it,
You're Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah. But does that, if you have had a good stretch of sleep, so let's say you went to bed at 9, to 2. What is that? 9, 10, 11, 10, 11, 12. I'm counting on my fingers. 3,
9 to
5,
10.
5 hours.
That's not enough.
Not
You
enough.
got to go, aim for 7 to 8.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking. I knew that, but I was hoping
I mean, if you went to bed at 8 o'clock.
Oh, that's too.
Yeah.
Even at 9, my husband's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'll be back." He's like, "No, you're not." Okay, good night. But I always I try to tell myself when I wake up at 2 or 3, just take a nap. Just lay here quietly at least until 4, and then I usually make it to 5 or 5:30.
Oh, there you go. So then you're getting enough.
Yeah, I guess. But I like it. I like getting up early. It's quiet.
It's quiet. I do too.
But there's early, and then there's probably too early. So that's the thing. So
yeah.
All right. So we got sleep now. What else do we have?
So next thing, when we have a lot of stress in our body, we tend to use up certain vitamins faster than we normally would. And I just think it's really important that if we're stressed, we make sure that we're getting foods rich in those foods. So some of the things that we kind of burn through faster when we're under a lot of stress is our B vitamins. And there's 8 different B vitamins, so I can't just say one of them, but it's kind of the collection. Yeah. And they're in everything from animal proteins, spinach, collard greens, whole grains, legumes like lentils and black beans and peas and chickpeas. So getting your B vitamins, just making sure they're part of your regular diet, right?
Half a cup of black beans a day.
You do?
I try. Half a cup of black beans.
Oh, good for you. A lot of fiber too.
Well, I'm all about the fiber.
I know.
We're all about the fiber, Barb.
All about the fiber.
Yeah.
All about the fiber. Yeah. Vitamin C has been shown to help reduce cortisol. So, we all know the citrus fruits, but also things like red peppers, strawberries are rich in vitamin C. And magnesium is very calming. It's a mineral, most of us are low in it. A great way to get magnesium is to take an Epsom salt bath because it comes absorbed through your skin. Dark chocolate is high in magnesium, almonds, and leafy greens. And that's one of those things, sometimes people have to supplement a little bit. And there's different forms of it, so you want to be careful. You're not going to get one that is, has some contra indications for you.
Yeah. No, really important. New Age said fiber lover here. Yes, I know. We love our fiber. We love our fiber. And so, but we hear a lot about magnesium now. And you kind of open the door and I was like, oh, do we want to go here? But supplements, vitamins. Okay, supplements, that's too big of a category for this moment. But vitamins, what do you think about a multivitamin? I'm a vitamin fan. I wasn't for most of my life. But now a K2, a D3, K2, D3. Yeah. I take a B12. I take a multivitamin. I think that's it. That's what I do. What are your thoughts on that? Do you believe in vitamins? Can they help? All the good things.
I do believe in vitamins. I do think that it's hard to get enough food in our diet that is nutrient rich to really give us everything we need. And we tend not to get enough variety of food. And the food that we eat doesn't necessarily have as much nutrients as it used to, just because our soil and sometimes our food travels a long way. So it can not have as much nutrients as we need. But I will caveat that you should look at what your specific blood tests recommend and what your diet is. Like if you have foods that you don't eat because you're sensitive to them, you might need to replace some foods that have those vitamins. But things like vitamin D, I think is really helpful, but you could over supplement. So you want to make sure that you have your blood checked and you're in a normal range, right?
Yeah, that's something that I think about. Let's see, Deanna says, and the gut might not absorb all the nutrients depending on health, right? Yeah, so that's another reason. But then you see the mega doses out there. That's what always. So I had a doctor recommend how much basic K2 and D for me, and and it seems so low compared to the mega dose of most of the supplements out there. And it made me feel like, oh, mine is not enough, when it actually is perfectly enough, but the doses seem to be so high. What's the dealio with that?
Yeah, so a general multivitamin usually has fairly low doses.
Yeah.
But when you get into specific supplements, you have to remember supplement companies, they're in the business of making money. So they often have different amounts in different supplements. So they'll have maybe they'll have a couple different things in each, 2 or 3 supplements of the same thing that are at different
Right.
levels. And it, sometimes I'll see, it depends on the actual supplement and what people's needs are. But I think that's where you need to have someone you can work with that is checking that for you, because you don't want to be wasting a bunch of money, right?
Right.
And things like the fat soluble vitamins like A and D and K and E, you actually can store in your body, so you could get too much of.
Right.
And things like B and C that are water soluble, if you take too much, they just come out through
Right.
your urine. So you're just
And that's what
wasting
you see
money.
C really mega dose. I mean,
Exactly.
huge of C. But
Yeah.
yes, with K2 and D, that's where I think you have to really pay attention, because they can get stuck and
Yeah.
we don't want them to build up. And
Yeah.
so just pay attention, educate yourself, reach out to Barb directly. You can always find her here on Instagram and other places. But and read the labels, because they're not all the same. And also the additional products, what is the capsule made of? What else is inside that filler with the vitamin as well?
I'm so glad you brought
sure.
that out, because sometimes there's a lot of fillers, there's coloring, sometimes there's sugar.
Yeah.
Sometimes there might be an ingredient that you react to that you had no idea. And sometimes, especially with certain nutrients and herbs, they can contraindicate and cause some big problems if you're on certain medications. So you definitely want to check it. And I'm happy to answer questions, but you can also check with a pharmacist and your doctor.
Yeah. Really good. Really important. Okay. I
Yeah.
think you have one last tip.
I have one last one, which is using movement and exercise to help reduce stress. So we can be, training for a marathon and overtraining and making it much more stressful, or we can do something like hitting that 3 o'clock afternoon slump and going for a walk down the street and unplugging and looking at the plants and the trees and just taking a couple deep breaths, and it can be so restoring. So just knowing for our body when we want to push and when we want to use movement, exercise, or just daily movement to relax a little bit.
And pushing is okay, right?
Yeah.
It's just being intentional about it and knowing where your head's at, what you have the capacity for.
Exactly.
I know a
Right.
lot of runners right now, with New York Marathon just happened, reminded me of when I ran my one whole marathon, and how it was very stressful, but it was amazing.
It's amazing, right?
It was amazing. It was amazing.
I mean, that's why a lot of athletes have seasons, right?
Yes.
Because they train and push, and then they pull back and they do something different. Right. So, and there's exercise, which we all should be doing, but there's also movement during the day. And we can use that movement just like we're using our food for eating mindfully, for moving mindfully. Right. We can do some stretches. We can go for a walk. We can even go for a walk with a friend, with our dog. We can use we can use that as an activity to help relieve stress. And we want to be mindful that we're not using exercise, it's not becoming stressful. And if it is, you do a big, you train for something, you do it, make sure you take your rest and then build back.
I love that. Super important.
Yeah.
We need to take care of ourselves, especially during all the transition years, that it is stressful. We're going through so many things beyond what our body is physiologically going through. So what we eat matters, how we move our body matters, and what we think matters, all of those things together. And stress is such an indicator of hate to put a report card on it, but how well we're, taking care of ourselves. Our bodies know.
Yeah,
Okay,
our
I'm going
bodies
to ask
do
you
know.
this question. I've
Okay.
never asked anyone this, my first time.
Oh God.
And I didn't tell you either.
I know.
I usually ask a question at the end, but I think I'm going to start mixing it up. Well, not really mixing it up, but I'm going to shift it now that we are meno well. And so I'm going to ask you, Barb, what does it mean to you to meno well?
Oh, I love that question. I love that question. I wish I had time to think about it first. Okay, off the cuff.
Yes.
To me, it means being strong. It means being comfortable in what I want to accomplish and being able to do it. It means being able to give of some of my gifts in a way that is nourishing to me and other people.
Oh, that's why I didn't want to tell you ahead of time.
I know. I would have thought of something that I probably would have had to get every word right. So
knowing you, being a clinical nutritionist, you'd have to have it exactly right. That's
right.
so beautiful, being able to give your gifts to nourish other people and yourself. Gorgeous.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Beautiful. I'm so grateful for all that you do with us, with Meno Well. I don't ever, maybe people don't all know that when I first met you and I had actually formulated the first bar, and then I'm going to meet Barb and she has to see the nutrition panel, the ingredients. And I was so nervous. I'm like, what if she hates it? What if she thinks it's terrible from, I didn't do this right, I didn't do that right. What if she doesn't think it tastes good? It's going to be awful. And she gave us yes. And so, woo! So, of course, always weighs in on all the formulations from there because you can't get in trouble with Barb Sobel.
Well, thank you. And that was really fun. I remember meeting you during COVID, 6 feet apart, and tasting the bars.
And I'm like,
that was awesome.
So good. Oh, Deanna, so nice. So glad you're here, everybody, for joining us today. The special edition of the Meno Lounge with the amazing Barb Sobel via Hawaii. So
awesome.
Thanks so much. Okay.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, everybody take in the scenery and take a deep breath. I'm going to the pool now. Love you guys.
Have a great one.
Be
Thank
well.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.